Call to order a meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Committee on Tuesday, September 3rd at 7 p.m. If the clerk would please call the roll, and I will note that we received communication from Alderman Jetty that he is unable to attend this evening.
Thank you. Alderwoman Marianne Malisi Goya.
Present.
Alderman David Tenza, not here right now. Alderman Brandon Laws. Here. Alderman Jan Schmidt is here, and as you said, Alderman Jetty is not coming this evening.
So we have a quorum, and also present we have Alderman Klee and President Wilshire. Public comment? None. So this evening we have a presentation with Ms. Kleiner, the Director of Administrative Services, and Jason Brennan, our GIS consultant. So if you would like to join us, and anyone else you would like to have join you, Ms. Kleiner, and I will let you introduce them. I will just say, for people at home, please make sure you're close to your mic.
Oh, to take face. Mouse.
You want the mouse?
The keyboard.
And if you sit, okay, it should work there.
Ah.
Oh, David's here. So
David's here.
I can move too.
you want to move?
I'll move over.
No, it's the next
It's
one.
the other gentleman.
Okay, yeah, just move up one. That's good. And then when I call on Alderman Tenza, they won't wonder why you're not speaking. So Alderman Tenza has joined us at 7:01. So everyone should have received a copy of the final report, as well as the GIS strategic plan review. There's one right here on Alderman O'Brien's desk. And I have asked that Ms. Lovering posts these with the minutes, so they're available for people to review. And as I was saying before Alderman Tenza got here, if you would please just make sure the mic is close and you're speaking into it, so people at home can hear you. And if you would identify yourself when you speak, so the person transcribing the tape will know who's speaking. Thank you. So, Ms. Kleiner.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having us here. My name's Kim Kleiner. I'm the Director of Administrative Services. To my right is Jason Brennan. He is our consultant from CDM Smith. To my immediate left is Pam Andruskevich from our GIS department. To my far left is Bruce Cottingone, Director of IT. We're here this evening to give you a presentation, and much of it is going to be Mr. Brennan who's going to speak. Last February or so, the mayor's office entered into an agreement with CDM Smith to do an overview and create a strategic plan for our GIS department. As many of you know, our long-term administrator of GIS, Mr. Marino, had retired. We knew that we had some needs within our DPW department for more GIS services. And we also were in the middle of the management audit report for assessing. And part of what we asked Mr. Brennan to look at was to verify that our software systems that currently of Civic View, which will be changing to Civic GOV from City View, and assessing and GIS to ensure us that they were all communicating in the best fashion. We wanted to include that in the management audit report as one of the oversights. So we asked Mr. Brennan and CDM Smith to look at that, as well as to put together a strategic overview of how we can move forward in the best interest of all of our city departments and all of our divisions within the city. So to that, Mr. Brennan.
Okay. So I put together, I'm Jason Brennan from the firm CDM Smith. I put together a PowerPoint presentation that gives you a pretty good overview of the results of the strategic plan. So I'm going to roll through that. If you have any questions, just let us know at any time. The goals of the GIS strategic plan were fairly straightforward. We wanted to review where you were at, take a look under the hood, take a look at the existing GIS environment that you have, the data environment, the staffing environment, and take a look at where you are from that standpoint. Benchmark the city against other cities and other state-of-the-art GIS environments, and then use that information to develop a series of recommendations on how to improve the GIS in the future. In addition to that, we came up with several strategies for best practices on how to implement GIS and how to sustain it going forward. So those were the overall goals of the assessment. The actual process that we went through included interviewing key city departments, primarily Department of Public Works, assessing IT department were the main departments of focus. We reviewed existing hardware and software environments to get a look under the hood and see what's going on. We took a look at your existing GIS data, your existing GIS applications that you have out there that you can access from the web. And we took all of that into consideration and then started to review your existing staffing and how data was managed. Do you have enough people? Are they in the right spots to make sure that this system is sustained going forward? And from that, we developed these series of recommendations. Just taking a step back and taking a little bit of a holistic view, what is the impact of GIS within municipalities? If you go back 20 years ago, very few, or there was a small percentage of municipalities that had GIS environments. Now just about every municipality, at least of this size, even much smaller, uses GIS on a day-to-day basis. It's considered to be an information technology environment, where back 20 years ago it was a mapping system. Today it's more of an information technology environment that's almost as important as all of the other systems that you have in here, because it houses all the city's asset information, where properties are, pipes are, gives a whole database of information to support management within city departments. Little vision statement up there, impact within municipalities. Within a city, nearly every decision made or action taken relates to geography. And what GIS provides is that spatial context to information that's stored within these different departments, pulls it together into one spot so that folks within the city can make more informed decisions. Proper implementation of GIS technology will help the city analyze impacts and better plan for development. I was talking to these folks before about a city 20 years ago that was a company was looking to locate there, or looking to locate in one of several cities. This one city was able to package up all of the data for all of the available land, topography, utilities, entrances to the highway, hand it over to them on a silver platter. They're in competition with other cities for economic development, and they were able to select that city because they gave them the information and made their job easier. GIS supports more effective analysis and reporting specifically to state and federal agencies. You've got your MS4 program. You've got CSO reporting. They require GIS deliverables and they require GIS data. So it supports all that. Streamlining processes to help departments operate more efficiently by just sharing information, better reacting to emergency situations. We've got a hurricane coming up the coast, being able to get information out to the people, and then sharing critical data with the public and potential developers. Those are just some of the benefits that GIS has. I wanted to give a little bit of a history of Nashua's GIS environment. Fortunately or unfortunately, I say unfortunately because it means I'm getting older, I was the original project manager from the original GIS project back in 1997 when, at the same company. So I wanted to give you a little step through on how the city of Nashua's GIS has evolved over the years. Somewhere around 1995, 1996, Department of Public Works and Assessing were interested in implementing a GIS program. There was a lot of CSO activity going on. There was CSO projects going on out there, and they needed to get accurate mapping information. So that was one of the things that kickstarted the city's GIS program. Somewhere around 1998, the city completed an aerial mapping project. Planes flew over the city. They mapped out everything that they could see from the air: roads, buildings, water bodies, manholes, catch basins. All that information came in kind of in like an AutoCAD format that was accurate enough to do preliminary engineering on. In addition, they were able to get satellite type of imagery, and that actually acted as kind of the foundation. It's kind of think you're building your house. This aerial mapping is really the foundation of a GIS environment. And that was kind of the first step that they went through. Then in the late 90s, after that was completed, the assessing department and the public works department went through a data development project, two data development projects. One to map out all of the parcels within the city, and the other to map out all of the sewer systems and stormwater systems in the city. And that was developed, the sewer system and stormwater system was developed by pulling in, I think there were about 2,100 as-built plans that sat in the engineering department, I think right over here back in the day on the second floor, and pulling all that information together and mapping it as accurately as possible. In addition, I think it was 27,000 parcels were mapped. And if anybody remembers the parcel maps from back in the day, they had these things that we used to call the Dead Sea Scrolls, that you could roll the parcel map out and it would go down the floor, and there was like 10,000 parcels on one map. It was pretty archaic, and back in the day, and all that information was compiled and put into this GIS environment, and that was in the late 1990s. Fast forward a couple of years to 2001, the GIS department was formed, headed by Angelo Marino. At that point in time, Pam was hired as a city's GIS technician. In and around that time, we got the city's web GIS up and operational. It's been operational now for almost 20 years, almost 20 years now. And that gets tens of thousands hits a year. So that provides information out to the public. Then in the mid-2000s, around 2003, the city put an investment in GIS hardware and software. Databases behind the scenes were stored in the IT department. We kind of got that IT framework set up, and we started centralizing the GIS data within that IT environment. And then from a period about 2003 to 2013, it would really evolve system expansion, developing new layers. We get the pictometry database was acquired every few years. Applications were updated, new applications were developed. And I know that Pam put a significant focus on improving the parcel mapping during those years as well. So a lot of data that was developed during those years. And then kind of coming up toward today, 2013, the city acquired a software environment called ArcGIS Online, which now pushes GIS data to the cloud, and we can access it on our cell phones. Everything, is going to the cloud. With that environment, the GIS was made accessible not only to the public, but to field crews out in the field so they could access information anywhere, anytime, pretty much using any device that they have. And then Public Works, over the last few years, Public Works have done a good job on getting their GIS data updated and providing mobile applications out to field people so that they can access this data. And now today, the big news today is this year, that original aerial mapping that was developed in 1998 is finally getting updated after 20 years. The city was flown in April, and there's going to be a process to redo that initial base mapping out every road, building, water body, sidewalk, porch, patio, all the things that you can see from the air. That's long overdue, put it that way. It's been 20 years. So that's kind of a little bit of a thumbnail sketch of how the city's GIS has evolved over the years. Diving into the report and some of the specifics related to the report. As I mentioned, we talked to several different departments, completed a lot of interviews, and I can just say in general that overall the city has a very well organized, very well run GIS environment that consists of accurate data, a very good technology backbone within the IT environment, IT department to house all this information. includes a series of very good web and mobile applications that push data out to the public and allow you to use that information and visualize information within city board meetings. And so from that perspective, the city's system is pretty highly well regarded by other communities, simply due to the fact that you have a very good set of accurate data and very good applications and very good IT environment behind the scenes, allowing you to maximize the use of the system. Key areas of improvement really revolve primarily around staffing and citywide system management. Over the years, I know that Pam's focus primarily has been related to parcels and making sure the zoning mapping. But in subsequent years, there used to be a person that worked here, Art Kidd, who was really the master in maintaining the sewer and stormwater layers. After he retired, there really was nobody in Public Works really to pick that up. So while a lot of the parcel information had been improved over the years, the wastewater information, the stormwater information kind of stagnated. But there's been an effort now to improve that. So we took a look. Key areas of improvement really revolve around the staffing, the management, and then getting more applications out there, getting more departments involved, wrapping it into the city as a whole and providing city departments with the tools so that they can use all this great data that you have. So some of the details on the findings, and I'm going to breeze through this quick because it starts to get a little bit technical. What we ended up doing is like one of those red, yellow, green synopsises on all the different aspects of GIS, just to give you a little bit of a scorecard on where you're at. In regards to the city GIS hardware and software environment, you're in excellent shape. Thumbs up on that. You've got all the hardware and software necessary to operate the system, and things are looking good. So that relates to servers and software. Regarding how your GIS data is stored on these servers and software, it's pretty good. We give it a score of like a B+. The prime thing is over 20 years, you start collecting a lot of data. And if you look at your PC at home and you notice that your desktop on your computer has 1 million different icons on it, that's what happens within the GIS database over 20 years. So what we've done actually over the past several months is working with IT and Pam and other folks is we've actually gone through the process to really move that yellow score up to a green score by going through and upgrading all your software environments, taking a look at your data and getting rid of the old data and making sure that the new data is in there and everything is well organized, and getting rid of all the temporary files and just cleaning things up, kind of making it from your junk drawer and kind of cleaning that all up. Everything's been cleaned up and it's in pretty good shape.
Jason, may I interrupt you for a minute? I think everyone's following along with the PowerPoint presentation, but if you have the actual final report and you turn to section 3, for those of us who need it, the print's a little bigger, and it might be easier to follow along, and you can see the green, yellow, and red. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry. No,
Thank you. Good.
You're welcome.
I was trying to stay away from that. That was just.
Yeah.
So the copy that you see up there, the yellow dots that you see up here really correlate with these charts that are in the report, figures that are in the report.
So, and if I understood you correctly, your last comment was you've been working, and so these yellow triangles are now moving closer to green?
Exactly.
Okay, thank
And
you.
if you take a look, there's a lot of technical things in here, but the bottom line is that what we're talking about now regarding geodatabase design and configuration is how well your data is stored on those servers. And things have been organized, and so that's moving from a yellow to a
Right.
green.
If I may.
Yes,
Bruce
please.
Cogno, Director of IT. There's a laundry list of things that were done that came out of this whole report. I won't get into every single one of them, but alluding to what Jason's talking about, 5 new servers were dedicated to the GIS environment. The entire environment was rebuilt, and we put processes in place for change management, control how the environment is actually administered. In the process also, we cleaned up over 300 gigabyte of duplicate data. So that helped extremely for a stable environment. And the environment itself has been very stable because of all this.
Okay, thank you.
So the next piece of the puzzle is, now that the second bullet related to GIS data stored on server, the third bullet really relates to how the GIS is updated and maintained. And those two green dots that you see there on the screen really relate to parcel data, and like city zoning, wetland, those types of data are updated meticulously. If she finds an error in a parcel, she's going to go searching around 5 city blocks to find out where that error is. The triangles, the yellow triangles, which are items number 2 and items number 4, really relate to the city's utility layers, which are in improving shape, and I think over the next several months or year or so, that will start moving from a yellow into the green as well. The red dot that you see there really relates to update of your accurate aerial mapping, the planimetric mapping that I showed before, the building outlines. That hadn't been done in 20 years, and so the city was in desperate need of update of that information, and that's actually happening this year, so that dot will turn from a red to a green, which will mean that your data will be in very, very good shape. Some of the findings also determined, we took a look at your existing GIS applications that you have, the web GIS applications, and how they integrate with different systems. So you got to think about this. Within a GIS environment, you might have a piece of property, or you might have a sewer pipe. Well, that piece of property has an address, and it has the ability to tie into the police incident reporting system, the building permit system, the assessing system, because those all have addresses as well. And by making those connections, you're able to dive into those databases and start figuring things out and determining trends. Show me where all my building is happening over the last 5 years. You know, what are the trends? Where are the building permits located? Where are the crimes happening? All that really relates to this address information and parcel information that was developed by the GIS department over several years. And if you take a look at how the GIS integrates with the different systems that you have, it has an excellent integration with the city's Patriot system, and it's pretty much got every Patriot record and every record in Patriot has a piece of property, you know, in the GIS environment. So that integration is excellent. What areas for improvement are integration with the city's new CivicGov environment, which is going to be operational soon, and the city's cartograph environment. So CivicGov is going to relate to building permits and managing the building permit process. And this cartograph piece of software that Public Works has really relates to tracking work orders, work maintenance, and work history on Public Works related assets. And that software environment also has the capability to take that information into account to help you figure out how to best spend your money going forward, capital planning. It does pavement management, does all that, those type of things. And what's going to be critical to the success of the cartograph system is being able to write these work orders against assets that are in the GIS. So if you could start seeing where you're having system failures and then use that information for capital planning going forward. So that's going to be critical moving forward. And then the yellow triangle at the second one, I think it is, top one, really relates to your WebGIS application that's out there available to the city. That's in good shape, but could use a little bit of an update to give it a new look and feel and make it available on smartphones and, you know, do a little tweaks to that to make it more intuitive to users using different devices. And then lastly, the details related to GIS management and structure and staffing. Overall, you're looking pretty good. The areas of improvement really relate to the red triangle the red dot that you see there really relates to developing a GIS committee. The city's GIS over the years has been organized as a GIS department of 2, And they focused on, primarily on applications and things within City Hall. And with the retirement of our kids, some of the GIS capabilities of the Public Works Department haven't sustained where they were before. So we're looking, one key thing of note related to management of GIS within municipalities is it's always good to have an overarching GIS committee that's comprised of folks from all different city departments, get them together into one room on a timely basis just to kind of chart the course of GIS over the next few years. Get that to-do list, get that punch list going, and then use that to ensure that the needs of all departments are met. And that's one item for improvement for the city of Nashua. Other than that, the GIS management and staffing structure, all that's in pretty good shape with the retirement of Angelo Marino. We're down a person, so we're looking to get staffing for the Public Works Department so that they can maintain their information. So those are kind of the main findings of the report. Are there any questions on that? We're going to get into the recommendations in a minute.
Yes, Alderman Clee.
Thank you for taking my call. Just two quick questions. One was, when you talked about cleaning up the data and everything, we didn't get rid of those historical layers though, right? Like, when you look at it, I can look at 2015, 2014, and so on.
It was all duplicate data.
Okay, just the
So
duplicate data.
whenever something was new created, they took a snapshot of the database, put that aside, and
Okay,
made changes to the database.
okay.
But it was always duplicate.
Okay. And the reason I say that is because it's been very helpful if someone says, this happened and this person, we've actually been able to look at the layers and see back what it looked like. So whether or not those trees had been removed or something like that. So that's really important. And the other question that I have is, you talked about all the different bodies that would be able to use it. So I was curious, I noticed you mentioned certain departments, DPW and so on, that you'd spoken to. Was community development, the Nashua PD or the Nashua Fire and Rescue brought in at all as to how they would be able to use this? Because I heard you mention building permits and so on, which falls under our, and the PD, so. Thank you.
Kim Kleiner. Yes, so Director Marchant and I have talked extensively throughout the process. As you know, community development is probably one of the farthest departments as far as both Director Marchant is a very pro user, as well as Julie Chismus. And they really have a strong understanding, and they've been extremely helpful through this process to kind of, as Pam Andruskevich and IT were cleaning up the database and the servers and everything, they were taking on and developing some of their own things to kind of take a little bit of the pressure off of us for a while. To the GIS committee that Mr. Brennan spoke about, Director Marchant, Director Cummings, Director Cardignone, Director Photo, Ms. Andruskevich, Louise Brown, Nick Miservich, Director Cates, Fire Chief Rhodes, and myself will make up that committee. We've already held our first meeting. And we're hoping that will bring a much more connected viewpoint as we look to the needs of how our organization uses GIS, what's our priorities. As you know, in the escrows, there's some consultant money that we've asked for. That will give us a hand and give us a handle on some of those tools and expertise that we may not have. But community development, economic development, and DPW have been very, very helpful throughout this process and very engaged.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to see everything's working together. So, thank you.
Alderman Wilshire.
Thank you. So Pam, are you doing all the DPW stuff, or is that just not being done at this point?
Pam Andruskevich, City GIS Department. DPW really hasn't had a lot of updates done since our kid retired. So as far as data maintenance, no, I haven't been doing that, and that's what they're in dire need of. When they have questions, or are in need of data for some purpose or project, we help out with that whenever we can. But they have some big projects coming up and data maintenance that really will require a full-time person.
Now, how long has our kid, he's been gone several years, right?
Yes, I want to say 6 years or something
Yeah.
like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a project in 2016 to update everything from about 2010 to 2016.
So we have some catch-up to do,
A little bit.
a little bit. Okay. So my other question is for Ms. Kleiner. Do we have a GIS position in the budget?
So there is a GIS position within the DPW budget. And that position was posted today.
Okay.
And Mr. Brennan's going to go a little bit more into that during the rest of the presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, so those were the findings, and the major ones: data's good, systems are good, staffing needs a little bit of work, short staff. So we took a look at some of the different aspirations based on talking to the different departments. And, the bottom line is that the city wants to build upon the excellent GIS and foundation that's already there, and enhance the system to incorporate new users, new applications, centralized data management, and provide a tool that will benefit the entire city, all city departments. And to get there, this will be completed by ensuring that there's proper staffing, that there's a formal management structure in place to ensure that all departments are accounted for, expanding the involvement of the IT department in managing those back-end data systems and servers, and developing policy to ensure that data is maintained going forward and maintained the right way so we don't have any of these slips. And in addition to that, we want to make sure that we're integrated with all these different technology systems that you have, and that staff are trained and are provided tools that they can use to support what they have to do on a day-to-day basis. So those are some of the goals. Diving into the recommendations, we've got a half a dozen key recommendations. They're detailed in the report, but the big one is to enhance your current GIS staffing and management structure. And this includes a recommendation to add a GIS specialist within the Department of Public Works that will focus specifically on public works-related data and public works-related applications. What I mean by that is maintaining the pipe network systems, the snowplow routing, all that type of stuff, developing applications so that they go out and inspect outfalls that are necessary for the MS4 program. So that's one of the key things, key recommendations was to hire a GIS person. With the retirement of the GIS administrator, we had to put together a management structure and recommend a management structure that would allow the entire city to be able to maximize the use of GIS data. So we have a several-tier management structure, which right at the top involves the recommended action of developing a GIS steering committee. And as Ms. Kleiner just mentioned, that has already been developed, and that includes members from multiple city departments. And the goal of that committee really is to kind of chart the path for GIS implementation and development in the long term. Not to get into the weeds on any technical matter, but just start setting the priorities of what needs to get done. Any other comment on that? Okay. Then we figured out that because there really is no, the GIS administrator position is no longer filled right now, we need a technical group that will kind of set the technical focus of the GIS environment and will make some of the decisions. So the GIS steering committee kind of sets all the main goals. That GIS technical group kind of organizes those, puts them in an order, and those are executed by the applicable GIS specialists within City Hall or within Public Works. So they're kind of like a little technical triage committee to make sure that we're moving forward with what we've planned out for. Then we have down there on the next level, we've recommended including a GIS consultant on an as-needed basis to help out with technical issues that might be above and beyond the capabilities of the folks at City Hall. And then we've also have on there the Information Technology Department providing assistance on an as-needed basis to ensure that all the databases behind the scenes are kept up and operational, are tuned, are backed up, and are accessible by the city staff and the public. And then the GIS specialist within City Hall, which would be Pam, focuses primarily on City Hall departments, assessing community development. And then the GIS specialist within Public Works primarily focuses on Public Works-related data. They will work together on a day-to-day basis just to make sure that we're moving forward in the correct path and everything is done in the standardized manner. And then that last group below relates to all the different users, and they'll be using the information as developed by the folks within that, by the GIS specialists.
So Jason, what you have up on the screen is different from the two proposed models. And I came and got the report so I could read it before the meeting. So is this what we're now going with? Is this what the decision has been? Because if I read this report, it sounds like you've got two models, but I'm looking at this and it looks like it's a bit of a hybrid of what's in here. And so that's what you've decided,
Yes.
the committee's decided they're going to move forward with. And I see Ms. Kleiner looking at me and smiling. So I'm taking that as a
Kim Kleiner. So, I think we looked at a lot of factors. Of course, we looked at the budget, and we looked at how we can ensure that we're working together, be it, administrative services, IT, DPW. So we really thought that between myself and Director Cottignone and Director Photo, and we can grouply decide on what we need to call in a consultant with, and with Ms. Andruskevich and whomever the new specialist is, we can really work together to make sure that we're performing the duties and the ways that the GIS steering committee has asked us to. So it's a little different than having a GIS coordinator or a GIS administrator, but we think it will work. We think it will incorporate everyone's priorities and needs, and we're going to move forward.
And that's fine. I just, and the only reason I'm asking is because this says recommended, so it sounds like it's not really happening yet. And these are both proposed, so none of it sounds like it's happening. But my sense is this is what's been agreed upon. And I think that, certainly every one of us sitting around this horseshoe, including Mr. Brennan, is aware of the budgetary impacts of whatever we do. But I think, the great news in terms of just what we've been able to do and how we've kept things up to date. And when I look at your recommendations, it's like some house cleaning and going the next step because we have a good foundation. So I think if this is the model that the committee has agreed to adopt, because it makes the most sense to keep us moving forward and continuing to keep things right there where they need to be. So we're up to date and we can easily access things, both our city employees as well as the community, because we know people in the community rely on this also. So I think this is fine. I just thought, recommended, proposed. They sound kind of the same to me. So, but I think, after reading the report, this looks like a great, like it will lead us towards achieving those goals.
In the future, if the needs arise and the system expands, a GIS administrator could slide in right underneath that GIS technical group.
Technical group, yeah.
After the discussions with the different departments, you have to start figuring out, you talked about budgetary constraints, And if we're able to add one person, the Public Works Department really needs a GIS person at this given point in time, and that's where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck. And so that's the model that we went with.
And it makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Kind of flying through these ones, because that's really the big push in this whole report, was to figure out how the management structure was going to be set up. But in short on this, 2 GIS specialists, 1 at City Hall, 1 in DPW. As we mentioned before, IT department managing the back-end databases. We, as we mentioned previously, we have had a series of recommendations for how to tweak, reconfigure, enhance your existing GIS database behind the scenes. A lot of that has actually been implemented since the report was finished. We also recommend starting to develop a series of enhanced GIS data and applications out there. That might be, right now you've got a GIS web viewer application where you can type in an owner name and go to that piece of property. But maybe what we do is we start developing some more focused applications for specific purposes. Maybe something specific for DPW that focuses on DPW utilities, something specific for community development that focuses on their needs, instead of having one application that's got 50 different things in it. Might help it separate it out. So we put in some recommendations related to that, put in recommendations related to expanding the capability to have GIS data out in the field on your phones, and then moving into things like business intelligence, and that's taking into account a lot of data from different departments and pulling it into one spot, and using business intelligence tools to help you identify where problems are, and then use that information to properly plan going forward. So those were some of the recommendations on applications. We also recommend enhancing the integration of GIS with Cartograph and the to-be-deployed CivicGov application, and that will be done via a combination of folks in the IT department and GIS specialists. And then we also recommend getting good GIS policy and training in place to make sure that the GIS is maintained properly and that the staff have the training to use this, and expand the breadth and use of GIS within city departments. I think right now a lot of folks will go to Pam when they have a question on GIS or need something from the GIS. We want to move from that model of people going to the GIS specialist and move to a model where we provide people with the tools so they can do this themselves, so that they can use the GIS environment much like they use Word or PowerPoint on a day-to-day basis. And we can do that by providing the right applications, the proper training, and make sure that the data is easy to find within the technology environment that you have. So those are the primary recommendations. In the end, when all this is done and implemented, you'll have a formalized management structure with a good GIS steering committee that involves multiple different departments that are charting the course. You'll have that strong and flexible technology backbone that'll allow you to access data from within City Hall, from at your home, from on your phone, from anywhere that you need to access data from. You'll have dedicated GIS staff that will serve the needs of city departments and focus on the departments within City Hall, police, fire, as well as dedicated staff for public works. Have that accurate and complete GIS data. You'll have enhanced and innovative applications that people can use out in the field, and you'll have that policy and training and structure in place to ensure that the system is sustained and improved going forward. And I think that's all we have.
Thank you. Thank you. So questions, comments? Alderman Laws.
First of all, thank you. That was a comprehensive, that was a very good presentation. I appreciate it. I feel like one of the things that you were circling around but didn't say, or maybe I didn't hear you say it, was that implementing this software, I for one welcome our robot overloads. This is the wave of the future, right? And implementing this software is going to free up a lot of man hours that are otherwise implemented in the wrong way by looking for information that could much more easily be researched using stuff like this. Is there any ballpark figure about how much money this may save the city in the long run?
You know, it's hard to tell. I remember back in 1998 when we did the first aerial flight. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but by just acquiring that aerial mapping, the city was going to have to do, and I'm pulling a number out of the air, don't quote me on this, but the city was going to have to do something like, say, $100,000 in survey work to complete I think it was more than that. I think it was actually $500,000 worth of survey work to support that CSO engineering projects that were going on. By doing the aerial mapping, and by completing that aerial mapping, the city was able to reduce that, say, $500,000 number down to $200,000. And the aerial mapping only cost, at that point in time, this is expensive back in the day, $200,000. So you actually had almost potentially $100,000 savings just on that one aerial mapping project in itself. So that's like one example. You know, as far as the efficiencies go, you take prior to working for CDM Smith, I worked for the city of Concord, so New Hampshire. And when we got ready for a planning board meeting, we were sitting out there at the photocopy machine, photocopying 4 tax maps and putting them together because the proposed site plan is always on the corner of 4 different maps, and stitching them together and mapping and taking hours pulling information together just for a single meeting. People would spend their whole days doing this stuff. Now with the GIS environment, you don't really have to do that anymore. It's just available at your fingertips. So a lot of the benefit really relates to increased efficiency going down the line, you know, which then translates into dollars. And then there's the aspect of you've got the MS4 program, you've got EPA with the consent orders related to CSOs. If you're unable to meet the requirements of the consent order, you get fined. And so these are really mandatory now to support those types of programs as well.
Thank you.
Follow-up?
I mean, it just seems like it's pretty obvious that in the long run, this is definitely going to save the city money. So,
Yeah.
well, and there are budgetary considerations. I feel like it's kind of a no-brainer that we need to do it.
GIS should be considered one of the pillars of an information technology department. You get your finance system, you got your assessing system, you get your building permit system, your police and fire systems. You have your GIS environment that actually wraps their arms around all those systems and provides the geographic component to all those different systems.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions, comments? Well, yes,
So,
Ms. Klein.
kind of speaking to Alderman Law's question, GIS pictometry is vital to assessing. So there's an awful lot that we can learn from pictometry in our assessment. And it's actually a tool that is approved as a way of looking at properties. You know, so we've talked a lot about the full measure and list and verifying sales, and we've heard an awful lot about assessing lately. But pictometry in GIS is used every day in everything that they do, and it's also used in community development. You know, we're lucky we have Pam right within our department. And I also want to say, because I want to make sure that it's known, when Mr. Marino left, we were in a situation, and it was really Director Connignone, Nick Miservich, and Ms. Andruskevich that stepped up and kept this system running through these various months. We're working with Bryson from CDM Smith, cleaning up the databases, hours and hours and hours of work. So we owe a lot of gratitude to them to keep the system going and really making it perform much better than it did before. So I want to make sure that that's not lost. She's Ms. Andruskevich has learned probably a lot in the past few months, even more than she learned before, while she also had a lot of requests coming in for her to fill, everything from assessing to community development to transit to parking. So I want to thank her.
Well, thank you. And I just think that, to Mr. Brennan's point, many of our boards and commissions, many of which are staffed by volunteers, as well as everyone sitting around this horseshoe, I think we've come to really rely on that and need the most accurate information we can get. And it's so nice, I think, for all of us, as well as the people on our planning board and our zoning board and, members of the fire commission, and other boards and commissions to be able to sit at home with a cup of coffee or whatever and just go online and get that information rather than coming here and having to look at a hard copy that's the most recent. So the accuracy and timeliness of that data, I think, is very important for all of us who are involved in what goes on in city government, and so ultimately for everyone who lives in the city. So I, in reading the report, was thrilled to see we were in such good shape and just feel like the recommendations are natural next steps. So thank you, and thank both of you, and thank you to everyone else who participated in this. Yeah, Alderman Schmidt.
Thank you. As a member of the Infrastructure Committee, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the training, Ms. Andruskevich. That was absolutely perfect. Our committee couldn't function without this, and we are so grateful that we only need to press a button and to find the data we need. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Alderman Clee.
Thank you. I actually want to do a Me Too thank you, and I can tell you as being a ward alderman, it has been incredible when someone calls me and starts talking to me about the corner of this street and this street, and short of getting in my car, running down there and looking at exactly what the properties look like and so on. This has been enormous. I mean, obviously, if someone builds a new fence, that's a little different. But to just be able to look at that environment, I know where every street is in my ward, but I don't remember every house that's on every corner and so on. So it has been invaluable without me having to get in my car and go and look. And I will agree with what Alderman Schmidt said about the infrastructure committee. I sat in this infrastructure committee, and if we didn't have it up there where we could actually point to it and say, you see where this street is, you see where this plot of land is, I would be saying, well, there's a street here and there's a little plot of land, and then and this has just been extraordinary. So I appreciate all the work that all of you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, thank you very much. We are, if you just want to stay for a second, I don't think we have anything else. Unfinished business, or communication, we have none. Unfinished business, none. New business, none. Public comment. I saw Mr. Schaefer raise his hand. Please come to the mic and your name and address, of course, for the record.
Peter Schaefer, 15 E Street. I just wanted to comment on the GIS that you were just talking about today. As I understand it, is you're going to be able to capture the old data that you have now, and you're going to keep that, so you can look back and you do trends with it, right? And I'm assuming that's going to go on for the future as well. So 5 and 10 years from now, you'll be able to do trends and all that data, right? What happens is, though, that when you get more and more data, there's going to be more and more questions. Because you're going to have more and more layers as well. You may have different types of layers of data you keep adding to it. So it gets actually pretty complicated, although, you have developers that can develop answers to questions that different departments come up. You're going to be hard pressed to really keep up with that, I think. 2 people, 10 people maybe, I don't know. But the thing is, what I've realized is that this is a city of 86,000 people, okay? And you're finding that some of those are very technical people, that some of those people know GIS already. So what I'm saying is that you might be able to reach out as well, the people that specialize in GIS may also be reaching out to the public, because this is actually fun stuff, the people who do this for a living somewhere else that actually, work in the city. So it would be a good idea to do that. So one way of doing that is to basically maybe in some cases publish certain APIs that's a little more sophisticated, that a user just can't just go in and ask for something. But if you publish a certain API, it simply means there's a programmer or someone who knows GIS that can then develop a program that answers these questions and can give it to you. Or you can, or just a kernel to start with that you can then massage, rather than have to start from, have two people do it all the time. That was the main comment.
Thank you. Remarks by Alderman? None. There's no need for a non-public session. Do I have a motion? Alderman Tenza? Motion is to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and we are adjourned at 7:56 PM. Thank you very much.